Here's your wrestling news for December 29th, 2020. And your headlines for today include: The MIZ gets Money in the Bank briefcase back on Raw. Charlotte Flair wardrobe malfunction forces WWE Raw to blackout screen. Keith Lee set for WWE title match during first Raw of 2021. Alexa Bliss challenges Randy Orton to intergender match on Raw. Former world champion teases in-ring return. Pat McAfee goes on tirade after WWE NXT pulled him from television. Brodie Lee was hospitalized for months prior to his passing. Matches revealed for AEW Brodie Lee tribute episode of Dynamite. Wrestler expresses doubts over Brodie Lee's passing, and more. We are kicking off today with Raw as the Red Brand paid tribute to Brodie Lee this week. The show started off with a graphic for Luke Harper, his WWE name, and Xavier Woods wore a black armband with Brodie written on it. Hitting a discus lariat just like Harper, Tom Phillips called out how similar this move was and repeatedly said "yeah, yeah, yeah," a catchphrase of Harper. Phillips also quipped, "It's Monday, you know what that means," a play on Brodie Lee's daily tweets reminding people what day it is, whilst Alexa Bliss also used a "yeah, yeah, yeah" in her playground segment. Interestingly, the show didn't include a 10-bell salute, which Kurt Hawkins pointed out on social media, but it's great to see the company and roster pay tribute to the recently departed wrestler. This week's show also saw The MIZ in action, and despite a loss to Grand Metalik, the A-lister was smiling by the end of the show. After making the argument that at TLC it was John Morrison who chose to cash in his Money in the Bank contract and not him, Adam Pearce agreed that this wasn't a legitimate cash-in, and returned the briefcase to the A-lister. Miz and Morrison were very pleased to see their plan work, and now the former WWE champion will walk into 2021 with the briefcase. But what do you think of the Miz's booking? Sound off in the comments below. Miz clearly had a better night than Charlotte Flair, who suffered a wardrobe malfunction during her match with Nia Jax. The WWE Women's Tag Team Champion kicked out of a near fall during the match, but then the screen blacked out, and when Flair got up, things were clearly a bit out of place. WWE has to be very quick with their censor button, as you never know what can happen in the ring, and it's a good thing that Kevin Dunn and the rest of the production crew had their eye on the ball this week. More Raw news next, as the final show of 2020 saw a huge #1 contenders match happen between Keith Lee and Sheamus. In the show's opener, Lee spirit bombed his way to victory, meaning he'll have a WWE Championship match against Drew McIntyre on the first Raw of 2021. This will also be the Legends Night edition of Raw, so it's only fitting that the show features a huge title match with two legends in the making. Next week could be the biggest win of Lee's career, and what do you think of how WWE is treating Lee? Let us know below. Raw also saw Alexa Bliss challenge Randy Orton to face her in the ring, leaving fans expecting an intergender match, but what we got was far different. In the closing segment, Bliss presented Orton with a can of gasoline and begged the Viper to light her on fire so she can be with the Fiend. Bliss even poured a trail of gasoline from Orton to herself and covered herself in the fluid before begging to be burned. It was only when Bliss chastised Orton for not being as vicious as he claims that he got tempted to set her ablaze, and when it looked like he was going to do so, the lights went down in the Thunderdome. The last sight of Raw in 2020 was Orton's face, illuminated by a few matches, as the commentators begged him not to burn Alexa, and we'll have to see where this cliffhanger ending goes in 2021. Now, Booker T will be on Raw next week for Legends Night, and we may even see him compete. When one fan tweeted Booker, who's still jacked at 55, about the possibility of an in-ring return, the Hall of Famer replied with, "Never say never." Booker's last WWE match happened at the April 21, 2012 live event in Glasgow, Scotland, where he teamed with Drew McIntyre to defeat Christian and Mark Henry. And after over 8 years away from the ring, Booker still looks like he could go in the ring. NXT news next, as Pat McAfee was recently pulled from TV in a decision that wasn't his own, and the former NFL punter isn't pleased. Speaking about the decision to pull him from TV, McAfee said he didn't deserve to have his Christmas day ruined by whenever he goes on Twitter, seeing reports that NXT have written him off, supposedly for the rest of his life. McAfee has proved himself both in the ring and on the mic, so we'll just have to wait and see when he'll return to the black and gold brand. Over to AEW, as more details have been revealed over the sudden passing of Brodie Lee. On Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer reported that Lee had been in the hospital since the end of October, which explains his absence from Dynamite, and that his wife Amanda told everyone in the company, though they didn't want the situation getting out. Lee was supposed to take a couple of weeks off TV after losing the TNT title to Cody Rhodes, but then his condition worsened to the point where he couldn't finish his workouts. Toward the end of October, his lungs stopped working and he was rushed to a hospital in Jacksonville, Florida, and we are sending our deepest condolences to Amanda and their family at this time. This week's AEW Dynamite was meant to be part of the company's New Year's celebrations, but now a lot of that show will be scrapped. On Twitter, Tony Khan announced that instead, this week's episode will be a tribute show featuring special matches dedicated to the Exalted One. The card will include Cody, Orange Cassidy, and Ten facing Team Taz, whilst the Young Bucks and Colt Cabana face Matt Hardy and Private Party. Hangman Page, John Silver, and Alex Reynolds will take on MJF, Santana, and Ortiz, and Anna Jay and Ty Conti will face Dr. Britt Baker and Penelope Ford. Lance Archer, Evil Uno, and Stu Grayson will square off with Eddie Kingston, The Butcher, and The Blade, and although we're not sure what this will mean for Holiday Bash, the company is going all out to pay tribute to Lee. We're now going to talk about Chris Hero, who worked with Lee in the past and was greatly angered by one particularly callous report on his passing. In the PW Torch article titled, "Why the Questions Surrounding Brodie Lee's Death Are Important," Bruce Mitchell questioned Lee's cause of death, saying, "I'm not a doctor, but I've never heard of an athlete the size and in the shape Brodie Lee was in to be able to excel in his last 2 matches, suddenly developing a lung condition that serious that quickly." Hero didn't appreciate this unnecessary speculation, saying that he hopes Bruce looks back at this article with disappointment and embarrassment, adding, "You don't know a fraction of what you think you know, and your speculation is heartless. Do better." The wrestling world is still in mourning over Lee's death, which was due to a lung disease, and when Mitchell said, "I'm not a doctor," he really should have stopped his medical speculation there. Now, good old JR had worked in WWE for over 20 years and very much knows about WWE's inner workings. On the latest edition of his Grilling JR podcast, Ross spoke about several reasons behind Raw's terrible ratings. He said, "They don't have anybody hot. They have nobody that has momentum. Nobody is on the proverbial roll. You can't start, stop, 50-50 booking. I'll beat you with a small package and then you beat me up. How do you get any momentum? He did the job and so now I have to give him something back. What? Bullshit. Not tonight, not now, it makes no sense. That's 50-50 booking. You can't have it both ways. Do you want the people to be happy or sad? Do you want them angry or do you want them laughing? Well, I want them both. Well then, you're an idiot. You can't have that." WWE has announced a special episode of Raw called Raw Legends Night on January 4th, 2021. We'll have to see if it'll help with the show's dwindling ratings. Do you agree with what Jim Ross said? Let us know in the comments below. Finally, the world of professional wrestling has been still mourning about Brodie Lee's loss. Everyone has nothing but respect and admiration for Lee. One such person was his former tag partner, Randy Orton. He took to Instagram and made a tribute post where Orton called Lee as simply Luke. He revealed how respected Luke Harper was in WWE. The former world champion then revealed that his and Lee's wife Amanda are close friends. Orton then ended his post by saying that he is so proud of Lee and will forever cherish the memories and stories the two made together. "I knew Luke from work. I always called him Luke. Some of us call each other by our ring names, some stage names. It gets confusing, but I always called him Luke. I've been in a WWE locker room more than half of my existence, and there is an unwritten code. Respect is at the top. You all have heard about how much we all respected Luke, about how much we all enjoyed his presence. It's a fact. I'm telling you, on the back of a bus, traveling and away from family for weeks in a row, he was one of the ones I'd make sure to secure a seat on that bus next to. I'm not perfect, never thought I was. Neither was he. But talking to him and conversing about our families, as most husbands or fathers do on these trips at some point, I learned that he was near perfect when it came to how he loved his sons and his wife Amanda. I was always very proud of him, and out of my peripheral vision, I watched him as a fellow 20-year vet and saw many things that impressed me. Not just his work inside the ring, but how he treated others in the back. I'm telling you guys reading this, that this man's character is unmatched. I have many stories involving Luke and I will always cherish them. Know that he was a great human being. I will be in that same locker room tomorrow and look forward to sharing stories about my friend, Luke." #RIP Luke Harper. This tribute from Randy truly shows how well respected Brodie Lee was during his stay in WWE.